Who would wish themselves a pupil at Salem House School, or left to the not-so-tender mercy of the Murdstones? None of us, I imagine. And David's less than idyllic childhood is brought to an abrupt end with the death of his mother. What was the fate of Mr. Topsawyer? According to the friendly waiter, a figment of whose imagination he was, Mr. Topsawyer drank a glass of this very same ale that he's just served to David, only yesterday, right on this very spot, and promptly dropped dead. I wonder though if he wasn't revivified and rejuvenated in slightly modified form a generation later by a great fan of and successor to Dickens as a comic novelist, as the child protagonist of Mark Twain's Adventures of Tom Sawyer. In the ongoing Hungarian War of Independence, on July the 14th, the capital was temporarily moved to Szeged, where I am now, and the nationalists suffered a bitter blow on July the 31st, when the poet and revolutionary Petőfi Sándor was killed in battle at the age of 26, although his body was never found, and a legend grew up that he somehow survived. There was a major breakthrough in science though, as on July the 23rd, the French physicist Hippolyte Fizeau made the first accurate measurement of the speed of light by experimental method using mirrors. He calculated that light travels at 313,000 kilometers a second, which is just 5% above the currently accepted value. On July the 1st, Dickens suffered a bad fall, which was treated by the pre-modern practices of bloodletting and blistering. He was working on the section of Copperfield which most closely reflects his own painful childhood experiences, and he was struggling with how to incorporate them into David's narrative. Both to clear his head of this mental dilemma and to restore his physical health, he decamped to Broadstairs on the Kent coast for a week, and it was there that he invented the Micawbers, who helped him enormously in resolving his difficulties. Instead of staying in Broadstairs for the whole summer, as he had done on several occasions, he struck out for a new seaside destination towards the end of the month, and made Bonchurch on the Isle of Wight the temporary residence of the Dickens family for the summer of 1849. In this part we're introduced to the creaking, croaking, cracking Creakle and his human megaphone Tungay, whose name seems more ironic than apt, as he's anything but a barrel of fun. And then there's David's friend, the amusingly alliterative Tommy Traddles, who's always getting into trouble, and David's model as a gentleman scholar, James Steerforth, whose name evokes both seafaring and bold determination. Immediately after the text, there's a full-page ad for the patent cork floating mattress and boat cushion, followed by 3 pages of glowing testimonials. I'll just pick out a couple of lines from the very closely printed text, referring to the emigrant's bolster, which is earnestly recommended to the notice of those whose means are too limited to purchase a mattress, as it is impossible that loss of life can happen at sea from wreck or fire if every emigrant is provided with one of them. The appeal here is to the very many poor emigrants who were leaving Britain around this time in search of a better life elsewhere. Not only were migrants flocking to California, but they were also being encouraged to settle in Canada, the Cape Colony, and New South Wales. The prevailing view was that England, and London in particular with its population of 2 million, was full, and that those who had not succeeded in the class-ridden and highly competitive beating heart of the British Empire might fare better overseas. As I've already suggested, drowning at sea is a theme we'll return to in David Copperfield, as is the hot topic then, as now, of emigration. Phiz captures a tender, private moment. Clara Copperfield, now Murdstone, bonding with her new baby boy, as David enters unobserved to witness the scene, and sees for himself the changes that have occurred in his old home while he was away at school. The other plate is a very public set piece, the showdown between Steerforth and Mr. Mell, with Creakle and Tungay about to enter the fray. This is one of Fizz's finest compositions, not only capturing the dramatic tension of the moment, but adding a wealth of incidental detail that I was only able to pick out with a magnifying glass. There's schoolboy graffiti on the desks, walls and benches, a boy cruelly imitating Mr. Mell and his flute, a composite caricature of Creakle and Tungay on the door, and another caricature of the peg-legged Tungay in a Roman helmet, captioned, "A Rumman." My textual snippet also concerns the awful Creakle, a worthy, or rather worthless successor to the cruel schoolmaster Wackford Squeers in Nicholas Nickleby. And for his portrait with Cain, I'm using an illustration by Frederick Barnard that appeared in the Household edition in the 1870s. I should think there never can have been a man who enjoyed his profession more than Mr. Creakle did. He had a delight in cutting at the boys, which was like the satisfaction of a craving appetite. I'm confident that he couldn't resist a chubby boy especially, that there was a fascination in such a subject which made him restless in his mind until he had scored and marked him for the day. I was chubby myself and ought to know. How did David achieve popularity amongst the boys at Salem House? Happy reading!